the expectations for the Dallas Mavericks because obviously, Cooper Flag is there now, and we know that Kyrie Irving is probably going to, miss some time. And Anthony Davis had the eye surgery, which we have talked about, on this channel. And obviously, I don't like an eye, not that an eye injury is not common in the NBA, but like obviously the, timeline and the effect that it may have in his game is like different than, a typical, ankle injury and stuff like that. So with that being said, because again, you need your eyes to see, to see, obviously. So with that being said, what are our expectations for the Dallas Mavericks this season? And I've kind of, I did a video on this, maybe like a month ago, or I don't remember how long ago it was, but I did a video on this, and I was talking about the Kyrie Irving thing, and I was saying how, I don't expect Kyrie to be like, I don't know if he'll come back this season. He might, but I think a lot of people are like just expecting Kyrie to be back by January and be himself, and I feel like that's kind of a bit unrealistic because, you know, an ACL injury is a major injury, and it takes time to get back to yourself, let alone be able to get back on the court. So that's one thing. The other thing is Daniel Gafford, unfortunately, I think it's a hamstring. Um, that just came out today or yesterday that he's going to miss like 2 to 3 weeks or something like that. So not, you know, not a gigantic portion of time in reference to the NBA season, but still like, everything matters, especially with a team that doesn't have Kyrie Irving to begin with. So in terms of the Dallas Mavericks, what are your expectations? Where do you think the Dallas Mavericks will end up at the end of the season? For me personally, and again, I talked about this, I don't have the Mavericks, if I remember my predictions correctly. I don't have the Mavericks as a top 8 seed in the Western Conference. I don't have them being a playoff team. And that's, again, not because, like, the entire roster is pretty good, right? But the West is loaded. And even besides that, the main thing is Kyrie is out for however long, maybe even the whole season. I don't know. But they need Kyrie. They need him. Like, I understand they have Cooper Flag, they have Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis, although, again, what's going to be with Anthony Davis, we'll see. And Daniel Gafford, like I said, should be back sometime soon. You got Derek Lively. I'm pretty sure he's healthy now. I know I think he had surgery, if I remember correctly. Maybe it wasn't surgery, but he had some kind of injury last year. Near the end of the season, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm making that up. But so he should be healthy. You still have PJ Washington, and you brought in D'Lo to kind of be, their point guard while Kyrie is out. And when Kyrie comes back, D'Lo will probably get some minutes here and there and stuff like that, or be their backup point guard. That's all fine and well, but they need Kyrie. Like, the West is insane. We're talking about 13 teams. 13 teams in the West could legitimately make the playoffs. The only teams, no offense, who probably, are not going to make the playoffs, but you never know, is the Utah Jazz. But the Utah Jazz, I mean, I understand they're, very young and all that, but they do technically have an all-star in Lauri Markkanen. Um, they still have Walker Kessler, who is Walker Kessler going to be traded or not? Like, I think Walker Kessler is a good player, but like, can we stop having him on the trading block if he's not going to be traded? Like, it's like the whole Miles Turner thing 2.0. Like, either trade him or don't. Like, the constant rumors of Walker Kessler is just like unfair, like how it was for Miles Turner. That's not the reason Miles Turner left, although I'm sure it didn't help. Constantly hearing his name in trade rumors. But regardless, um, uh, anyway, the Jazz. So Walker Kessler, Laura Markkanen. You just picked up Ace Bailey in the draft. And then you have Keontae Jordan. You have a whole bunch of young, good talent. But again, Wes is loaded. I don't, and Will Hardy's a good coach too. I just, I don't know if they have enough to make the playoffs, but I guess you never know. But again, the Jazz, and then honestly, kind of only, the Jazz. I know people are going to say the Pelicans. I believe in Zion. Listen. I know he has his health issues. I know he can't stay healthy, but Zion is that guy, and like, regardless, I will just have to believe that that Zion, and Zion's going to be healthy. And if he's healthy, Pelicans, they got a chance. So it really is only them. I guess another team that people might say is the Blazers. I feel like the Blazers are going to surprise people this year. I feel like the Blazers have made improvements to their roster. Obviously, bringing in Drew Holiday is a, very big piece because he is a leader, a winner, a veteran, a champion, all that stuff. And I've talked about this before. Watch out for Denny Avdia. I know people weren't watching Blazers games last year. Denny Avdia had a really, really breakout season. And if he continues on that trend, watch out. And I'm a Shaden Sharp fan. I like Shaden Sharp. I think Shaden Sharp has, a very big ceiling. And I feel like I actually made a video on this too, ironically. But I had said, I think the video was talking about, I guess, my top 3 candidates for most improved or something like that. And I said the Blazers have 3 players who I feel like could be in candidacy for most improved. Denny Avdia, Shaden Sharp. Who was the third one? Who was the third player? Oh my god, I forgot. Who was the third player? Did I say Scoot Henderson? It must have been Scoot. That's the only thing that makes sense, right? So, I said the Blazers legitimately have 3 players who could win Most Improved Player, and Shaden Sharp is one of them. Shaden Sharp could win Most Improved Player. He has that potential, and so, I'm not guaranteeing the Blazers make the playoffs. Although in my original predictions, I said the Blazers would end up being the 8th seed. And then after the video, I was like, oh, I forgot about the Memphis Grizzlies. I forgot about the Minnesota Timberwolves. I didn't even put them in there. And I was like, oops. And if I'm making a choice, I'm pretty sure, not pretty sure, but I think I would go with the Timberwolves, Ant-Man. But, the Blazers could, they could outplay them. I like the Blazers, what they're doing. Regardless, Blazers, Timberwolves, whoever makes the 8th seed, it's not the point. But I'm saying, I think the Blazers are not going to be as bad as people might think. And while they may not be guaranteed to be a top 8 seed, like I said, I think the only team that's really not necessarily wouldn't be on my bingo card per se. Again, no offense, is the Jazz making the playoffs, but anything is possible. And so my whole point is that um, in terms of the Dallas Mavericks, again, we're talking about 14 team majority at least. Majority of the teams are going to be contending for a playoff spot or a play-in spot. You know what I mean? Like, there's no guarantee, and so that's why I feel like the Kyrie thing is a bigger deal than maybe some people are, you know, thinking or saying. And everyone's entitled to their opinion. And I'm not saying I'm going to be right because again, they still have a whole bunch of talent on that roster and stuff like that. And maybe without Kyrie, they are still able to make a playoff spot. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's not really the point. I'm just saying, in my opinion, because the West is so loaded, I personally don't have the Mavericks, ending up being a top 8 seed, because I just don't think, unless Kyrie comes back and he's just like perfectly fine, and before that they just get on a roll. Maybe Cooper Flag comes in and he's averaging 20. I don't know. Again, it's unpredictable. I don't have any problem with being wrong about that. I just personally, if the season ends the way that I think it's going to end, I don't have the Mavericks, finishing as a top 8 seed. But the Mavericks could be 9 or 10, and that's the play-in, and that gives you a chance to get into the playoffs. Guys, I'm not saying the Mavericks are going to be like number 14. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think the Mavericks are going to be last or anything like that, but if they end up being number 10, let's just say Kyrie doesn't come back or whatever, or Kyrie comes back really late or whatever, I don't think 10's unrealistic. I feel like 10, okay, when you're a top 10 seed, again in the West, you still have to be a good team, because I don't know what the records were last year, but I feel like if we go back and think about it, was the 10th seed a 500 team? It might have been. You know what I mean? So their record could still be decent, but at the same time in the West, every win and loss literally is determining your seeding. And I know that's obviously the case every season, but we know the West is that close. And I've talked about how I don't expect OKC to run away with not the win, but run away with the number 1 seed, this upcoming season, because I don't want to call it championship hangover, as people like to say, but I think they're not going to push themselves to get the number 1 seed because they already won a championship and they know they can do it. So I feel like they're going to try to win every game they can, and they're going to be good. But I can't remember if I predicted them to be the number 1 seed or number 2 seed, something like that. Maybe I think I predicted them to be 2. And that's because I expect them to be good and stuff like that, but I don't expect them to overexert themselves for no reason. You know what I mean? They know, what matters is winning in the playoffs. So I still expect OKC to be good, but that just adds on potential wins, I guess, for other teams in the Western Conference, because I'm tallying up less wins for OKC. So if they have less wins, that means they lost some games. And that means, who did they lose to? Well, some of them will be Western Conference teams, right? So that's kind of my thought process on that. And that also may help or hinder the Mavericks depending on which teams, OKC is losing to. So I guess it all depends how it works out. Somebody said, correct, I believe the Eagles are winning it all. Well, I'm glad you enjoy the NFL, but this is an NBA channel over here, but maybe the Eagles win it all again. We'll see. But I can't really give you a whole bunch of NFL talk because that's not my specialty. My specialty is NBA. I know about the NFL and I watch the NFL, here and there, and I guess you could say I'm a casual fan of the NFL. So I guess obviously I know the Eagles and I know, you know, stuff like that. But this is an NBA channel. But the Eagles could win. I don't want to get into NFL talk because I could start talking about the NFL because I do know some things about the NFL. I'm not gonna act like I don't know anything. But I don't want to. I don't want to get too off topic. But now you got me thinking. Who do I think is gonna win the Super Bowl this year? Obviously, plenty of people are gonna say the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all that stuff. And fair enough. I'm sure some people. I'm trying to think what the majority is. Because again, I don't really watch NFL content necessarily because again, I'm an NBA girly. So I don't really watch opinions on what people are thinking about who's going to win the Super Bowl. Now I'm just like thinking about it. I'm sure some people are going to say, I'm sure some people are going to say maybe the Bills because Josh Allen and stuff like that. People really believe in him, of course. Like I said, I don't follow the NFL that crazily, but I'm sure some people will probably say the Ravens because of Lamar Jackson and all that stuff, unless my memory is incorrect and the Ravens got really bad all of a sudden. But I believe that they're still pretty good. But again, maybe I'm wrong because again, I'm not claiming to be the NFL girly because that's not something I follow super closely. I'm sure some people will say the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. I think the majority of people would probably go either Eagles or Chiefs because that's kind of the obvious choice. Yeah. See, I got off track. Who am I picking to win the Super Bowl? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't think about it, to be honest. When the Super Bowl comes around, I'll let you know who I'm picking. Because when the two teams are there, then I make a choice on who I think is going to win. That's usually what I do. Because again, I'm not really rooting for any team. Funny enough, though, when I was younger, I used to be a Steelers fan. I don't know why. I just picked the Steelers. That was my team. I guess I liked their roster, and they were always winning at the time, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to remember who was on that roster. Obviously, the quarterback was Ben Roethlisberger. Who was their wide receiver? I feel like they had like a really good wide receiver. They had a really good running back. I can't remember who it was because I I don't remember. I just remember the Steelers was my team, and I have no clue why. I just picked them. No rhyme or reason. I'm not from Pittsburgh. Like, I just picked them. I have no idea why. I don't think the Steelers are going to win the championship, the Super Bowl this year, unless again my memory is incorrect and they just got really good all of a sudden. I feel like they picked up somebody recently that I saw that's good, but I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl. But yeah, see. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. I hope you enjoyed.